Hi, Myron. So happy to have you here. Finally, we've been connected on Instagram for past few years, and I'm following your work.
Yes,
Yeah, I love what you do, especially like your studio work with those hand painted backdrops and all that.
thank you.
Yeah, so I'm so happy to have you here. Could you introduce yourself and just tell a little bit about what exactly you do and what you specialize in?
Yeah, of course, as many of you guys might know by the header, my name's Myron Fields. I am a Washington, D.C. photographer. I have a specialty in portraiture, lifestyle, wedding, and engagement.
And I know you have your own studio space. So can you give us like a little bit backstory? How did you move in and how you made it work for you last year?
Yeah, moved into this studio space roughly about May of 2020. Yeah,
Hmm. So right after like we reopened, basically like slowly starting to reopen.
right after we're reopening, and um, I needed a controlled space. I also needed a space for in studio sessions and something that I can control. So I didn't have to be around a lot of people, but I could still continue to work. And of course, being safe, wearing a mask, cleaning down the studio, wiping down,
Right,
cleaning cameras, light stands, doorknobs, everything.
right.
Um, and actually, my first studio space was small,
Mm-hmm. So
very small. I wish I could share the photos with you. I'll probably share them one day, but it was a small studio space. But I'm just so amazed at how I made things work in that space. And then
mm-hmm.
eventually I moved into a larger space, which now I house both the studio and my working desk to get edits and emails
Mm-hmm.
and all the fun stuff done.
That's awesome. So how big was your first studio space, the smaller one?
First studio space was roughly around 190 to 210 square feet, I believe. I
Yeah.
can't remember, but
So
it
it's like a
was it was
medium-sized bedroom or like small, medium-sized bedroom.
yeah,
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 yeah. I'm in the
yeah.
same, like it's the same, 11 by 14. That's my studio. Yes, it's similar. That's awesome. So can you talk to, and you do photography full time, right?
I am full time.
Yeah.
I took the leap to go full time about 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've learned so many lessons in those 2 years, but I'm
I bet
so
you
glad
did.
that, especially yet last year, right?
Yeah, yeah. Okay, we're gonna talk about it in a minute. But
Yeah.
so what did
But
you
yeah,
do? So what was your day job or what did you do before you went full time? I'm just
yeah.
curious. Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, I have a background in business. I worked
Mm-hmm.
as a project manager.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've worked in business since I graduated, and let's see, I've worked in marketing, I've worked in project management, I've even worked in
So that's a
sales.
great skill set to have to starting your own thing, right? So that's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, that's why you do so well, right? We all try. Okay, so let's talk about the 2020, the pandemic hit, and I know like our like DC, Maryland, we shut down like end of March, last week of March, early April. So what happened in your business?
Yeah. I remember when the pandemic started, we were on a flight coming back from
Okay, hold on, Myron. One
WPPI.
sec. Hold on one sec, because you're freezing. So we're gonna stop the video and just continue just the audio. I'm gonna shut my video for a second.
So 2020, what a year. Yeah, the pandemic started when we were on our way coming back from this event called WPPI. It's an
Mm-hmm.
event for photographers, wedding portrait photography international conference.
Right.
It was in Vegas, as it annually is, and we were on the flight coming back, and we heard so many things about this. At the time, it was called it was ignorantly called the Chinese flu, or the bird flu.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as we were coming back, you heard things about it. The next few weeks, you heard a few things about it, and then eventually we saw that it was spreading throughout New York and DC and Los Angeles, and a lot of the major ports in the United States. And I had weddings that were planned for March out of state. I had weddings that were planned for April in state. And it
Mm-hmm.
was quickly one of those things that we're calling clients are calling us asking what to do and how do we pivot. And to be honest, I had no answers. This was my first full-time year into photography, and I had never dealt with this pandemic. I had never dealt with anything like this. So
Well, you learn quickly.
you learn
Times
quickly.
like
And to
that.
be honest, I was quite nervous. I was like, what in the world do we do?
So what did you do?
Yeah, so I, of course, reached out to mentors, and, of course, they were kind of like, look, we've never dealt with this. We don't know what to do. So
everybody was looking for like the end person to give the profound answer to everybody.
yeah, and really there was no answer. Some clients postponed weddings. Eventually we reached out to our lawyer who helped us with the contracts and the proposals, and we had to get some type of clause in there, a pandemic clause in there. That was helpful. So a lot of clients, what they did was, instead of having their weddings out of state, they decided to have maybe a 2-person wedding.
Right.
Some of those weddings were in outdoor parks like Meridian Hill Park. Others chose other locations, but they downsized the wedding and said, you know what, this pandemic's not going to stop our love. And so safely they proceeded with getting married.
Yeah, and I love that when people decided to just go with it. I know at first there was like a lot of confusion, but then I admire those couples in, with wedding photographers, because you probably lost a lot of, did you lose some business because of the pandemic, or most of them just were postponed or like downsized?
Most of my clients postponed. I did lose 2 or 3 weddings. It's unfortunate, but it happens.
Yeah. I know this is your first year being full-time in photography. So how many weddings do you do a year? How many weddings did you have scheduled in 2020? Just to give like a ratio between you, because you do portrait sessions as well. So those were not affected as much.
Yeah, 2020, I was on schedule to have at least 23 weddings.
Oh, that's good.
A lot of that has changed. I probably photographed half of that in 2020. Some of that has been postponed to 2021, and some has been postponed even to 2022.
Another question for you. So how did you have to adjust to the new norm with your portrait sessions and like wedding sessions that you still did in 2020 in terms of how the process has changed in your business, especially being in the studio? You already kind of like touched on that a little bit.
Yeah, being in studio has really helped, namely with the ability to have a controlled environment that I get to make sure is cleaned quite frequently. But then also it provides clients a bit of safety as they know they're walking into a controlled environment.
So your clients were not, so for example, if they had an option to do a shoot outside or in the studio, they were still opting for a studio option?
Some people didn't want to be around a ton of people, so they felt safer on one-on-one sessions, while others were like, no, I'd rather be outdoors in an environment where there weren't a lot of people.
Yeah, that's great. That's what I was having too. So people were not they were not having a problem coming into my studio, knowing that my studio is in my house. So it's super controlled, like there's no foot traffic or anything. So it definitely helps. Okay.
Yeah, being able to provide clients those options is great. I think it's something that really is great for business, because then you're no longer controlled by being able to work only when there's sunlight or only when the light looks a certain way, because you can create that type of light in the studio as well.
Right, I agree. Last question for you today. So what lessons did you learn in 2020, just generally like on a personal level, on a business level, and especially in your photography business, that you're going to implement maybe some new things in 2021?
Yeah, personally, I really just learned the huge lesson to live in the moment, live in the now. I was so worried at the beginning of the pandemic. I was having horrible anxiety attacks.
Oh, really?
I wasn't able to sleep. It was horrible. I would stay up till 4 a.m. I would wake up at 8 a.m., 7 a.m., getting a few hours of sleep. I just finally said, whatever is going to happen is going to happen, but I have to live in the now and just live in the present moment. So I would schedule frequent Zoom calls with friends and family. As you know, I got engaged last year. It was like, I can't.
Congratulations on that,
Thank
by the
you. Thank
way.
you. If she's listening, she knows she's the love of my life. And I had different proposal plans. We were supposed to go to Paris, but I had to live in the moment and say, you know what? We don't know when we're going to be able to go to Paris, but I'm not going to let our inability to travel to stop what I've been wanting to do for so long.
Right. It's not about where, it's about who you're with.
That's so true. And so I really just personally decided to live in the moment, and that even translated into photography. There's so many passion projects that we would want to work on. We would say, oh, one day, one day. And I never wanted to be that person that if I were to pass away, people would find my belongings and find that I have so many ideas sketched out that I've never done. Or they would find so many archives of photos that I never published. Although that's kind of the case right now. I have so many sessions I have never published. I don't know, but I just wanted to be present and live in the moment. But one huge lesson that I've passed along with my friends, and I'll even pass along to you, and it's this. Okay. If we can run a business in a global pandemic, we can run a business anytime.
Oh yeah, totally.
I've watched you, Ksenia, and you have done an amazing job running your business in a global pandemic.
Thank you.
And
thank you. But yeah, it all goes, it's like, I'm grateful for having amazing clients who are not, who trust in me. So this goes like both ways.
That as well. We have some of the most amazing clients. I love the clients that I have been gifted or given the ability to serve. They're a blessing to me, to the business, but also just to me personally. Some of them have become friends. We have now virtual happy hours or coffee meetings, or I photographed their events or families a few times within a year. So I'm very grateful for the amazing clients that we do have.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm gonna steal your idea of a happy hour and coffee meeting with a small group of clients that I feel most connected to. I love that.
No, please do it, because being in touch with your clients helps create community. Yeah, and I think community is big, even amongst photographers. We learn so much from one another, and it's been great to be able to just converse with you via Instagram DMs and learn lessons, and you answer questions and things like that. It's so helpful.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I like that you personally, you kind of go deeper, whatever subject we touch, it's not just like superficial. Like, again, actually, I feel connected to you, so we can actually talk about things, not just the small talk, So thank you for that.
Yeah, small talk is cool, but there's a reason behind what we do, Ksenia. And once we tap into that reason behind what we do, I feel we create better art. We're not just a shutter button clickers, we're artists. Right. And you don't really get to know the artist until you talk with them beyond the superficial of what type of camera do you use and how did you do this and the why did you do this and what's the motive behind it, and those are the questions I like to ask.
Yes, exactly. So why do you do what do you do?
I do what I do because people need what I need. I know that sounds so vague, but let me be more specific. I really feel that through photographing families, through photographing couples, it's not only the images for the immediate person, but these images will speak to the future generations. So perchance when a child is looking to see what love looks like, they can look to their parents' images and see the love that their parents shared. And I was the one who created those images for that couple. Or maybe it's a child who's considering opening a new business for themselves, and they'll look back 30 years prior and they'll see the branding photos that their parents had, or their mom or dad had for their business. And they'll be able to gain confidence and say, wow, my mom had this online business, or my dad was a lawyer, and I have these images to show. We're creating these images that will undoubtedly instill hope in no matter what way to future generations.
I love that. And especially like, I mean, in the family sense, yes, I kind of knew it deep inside me that for the generations to come. But like when you spin the business aspect of it, like your parents having their own business or doing something that they love and sharing those images. Cause you know, like branding shoots, a lot of people take them just, oh, it's just like in the moment to promote on Instagram or something like that. But I love like the deeper meaning. So thank you for sharing that. That was actually good.
Yeah, I share that with my clients as well. I let them know that no matter what I'm photographing, these images are for you, but they're also for future generations. Should you have children, or maybe there's a niece or nephew, or just someone who may know you, you're inspiring them by having these branding photos.
Exactly. And like from my personal experience, I just love seeing those pictures, like historical pictures, like 30, 50 years ago. And all of those, when those big businesses were opening up, for example, like Wegmans, they have a lot of pictures on the wall from like how it looked back in the day. And it's just so cool, like seeing, how it all started. And when it's actually the person that you personally know and a relative of yours, this is just so much more meaningful.
That's kind of what started me into photography somewhat.
Hmm.
At my grandparents' house, there's photos of my great great grandparents, of my great grandparents, my grandparents.
Hmm.
And to look at these images and consider the history, namely of African Americans, um, as you know, historically, photography was not something that was readily available to
Right.
minorities. Um, and so for my great grandparents to have these type of images, um, it was it was something unique because it spoke to their ability to make an investment
Hmm.
in having their portrait taken when that money could have been spent on their 16 children that they had.
Right.
16 children, yeah.
Wow. And it
Or
makes it so much more special, especially now. How many
yes,
years ago was that? Like how old is the oldest photograph that you own in your family?
we're thinking early 1900s.
Wow. That's amazing. Because I do have like archives at home, but I don't think they go back that far. Maybe I have some from like 1930s or 40s for sure.
Yeah. So seeing that, I saw, you know what? Oh, and that's another thing. Just as I said previously, when I look through those family photos, I gain confidence that no matter what comes historically, because consider the early 1900s or the civil rights movements or all the things that my grandparents and parents have gone through.
Right.
Even with the events of last week, it says to me that no matter what comes my way, I can make it through these because I have a lineage of I have a lineage that has made it through some of the toughest times.
Right. And the
And
photograph has the power because it's survived. Like this is the proof that you've come through so much.
so yeah, I would say to anyone, these images really speak to the confidence that we can gain, that whether it be a pandemic, whether it be racial inequality, we can make it through these things. And that's the reason why creating these images is extremely important.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this. We went way deeper than I expected, but this is actually great. So thank you so much for sharing your truth, Myron, and it was a pleasure finally connecting with you.
Yes,
If
it
you could,
was.
yeah, thank you so much for your time. So where our listeners and our viewers can find your work and what's your platform?
Website is www.mfieldsphotography.com. Instagram is mfieldsphotography. Facebook is facebook.com/mfieldsphotos.
Mhm.
Yeah, drop me a line. I'd love to chat with people. As you see, I love to talk beyond the surface about art and photography.
Yeah, and I love that about you. So I'm going to drop all the links below in the description to this video. And again, thank you so much for your time.